I want to show you guys an extreme far-right video because I really want my viewers to understand how right-wingers think about progressives. So take a look at this video.
If what I am about to tell you is true, almost everything we most treasure, freedom, beauty, reason, the family, economic well-being, and even goodness, is in jeopardy. Who or what poses this threat? The answer is the most powerful ideology of the last 100 years, leftism. Not liberalism, leftism, or if you prefer, progressivism. Leftism destroys everything it touches. Here are just a few examples. 1. The universities. Perhaps the most obvious example, one that many liberals acknowledge, is the left's near destruction of most universities as places of learning. In the words of Harvard professor Steven Pinker, an atheist and a liberal, because of the left, quote, universities are becoming laughingstocks of intolerance, unquote. At almost every university, and now high schools and even elementary schools, students are taught to shut down, not debate, those who differ with them, and to rely on feelings rather than reason. 2. The arts. Throughout history, the primary purpose of art was to elevate people through beauty, artistic excellence, and emotional depth. To the left, the primary purpose of art, sculpture, and music is to shock. That's why so much contemporary art is meaningless and involves the scatological, meaning urine and feces. Yes, urine and feces. To give one of countless examples, in 2016, the Guggenheim Museum in New York featured a pure gold working toilet, which visitors were invited to use. The name of the exhibit was America, so one could literally relieve oneself on America. 3. Literature. The English department at the University of Pennsylvania replaced the portrait of the greatest English language writer who ever lived, William Shakespeare, with a picture of a black lesbian poet. Why? Because he was a white European male. Leftist professors have replaced the pursuit of excellence with the pursuit of diversity. 4. Late-night television. In America, late-night television shows were completely apolitical. The hosts believed their role was to entertain viewers and offer them relief and laughter after a difficult day. No longer, you cannot watch late-night television if you just want to be entertained. Late-night TV is now left-night TV. 5. Religion. The left has ruined much of mainstream Protestantism and Catholicism and non-Orthodox Judaism, which are now little more than left-wing organizations with religious symbols. In many churches and synagogues, one is more likely to hear the clergy talk about political issues than about any other subject, including even the Bible. 6. Free speech. If there was anything virtually every American considered a bedrock value, it was freedom of speech. Yet the left is destroying even this unique American achievement. Almost half of America's young people say they believe in free speech, but not for hate speech. Yet the whole point of free speech is that it allows people to express any political or social position, including what any one of us considers hate speech. And hate speech now means any position the left differs with. 7. Race. America has become the least racist multiracial society in world history. On a daily basis, Americans of every race and ethnicity get along superbly. But the left constantly poisons young minds with angry diatribes about systemic racism, microaggressions, and white privilege. 8. The Boy Scouts. The left is destroying the Boy Scouts. They're not even the Boy Scouts anymore, they're just the Scouts. The left forced them to admit girls. Here's the thing about the left. It only destroys, it doesn't build. The Boy Scouts have helped shape tens of millions of boys into independent, strong, good men. So where's the left-wing version of the Boy Scouts? It doesn't exist. There is none. 9. Male-female. In some ways, scariest of all, the left is committed to ending male and female as distinct categories. Children are increasingly raised not to think of themselves as a boy or a girl. Teachers are told not to refer to their students as boys or girls, just students. In New York City, parents do not have to check off male or female on their newborn's birth certificate. They can check off X. All this imposed gender confusion can only end up producing confused people and a confused society.
That was such a stupid freaking argument. So understand this. Progressivism involves two things. Overall, it involves the progression of society. But there are two aspects of progression: social progression, economic progression. This guy talked about universities, arts, literature, late night television, religion, free speech, race, the Boy Scouts, and male and female. None of those are economic issues. So he pretty much intentionally avoided economic issues. Why? Well, I'll get to that in a second. But he starts his whole thing with, leftism destroys everything it touches. Not necessarily. He's close. Progressivism, that's how I say it, it progresses everything it touches. So every single progress that has ever been made in U.S. history has been because of progressivism. That is not a feeling. That is a defined fact. By definition, if you progress, that is progressivism. So, Abraham Lincoln, the whole civil rights movement, the whole let's do women's rights movement, bringing people out of the Great Depression. All of these were progressive agendas. That being said, however, I do want to break down issue by issue what this guy brought up and talk about how ridiculous his statements are, just in general. Universities. So he talks about how students are taught that they are to shut down people and not to debate. Citation needed, absolutely. I've never seen that. I'm a university instructor. I have no idea what that guy's talking about. But he says students take feelings over reason. That's incredibly ironic, because when you talk about reason, maybe we could talk about statistical significance and how over 6,500 climate scientists have suggested that we have about 12 years to save the planet. And, maybe all the evolutionary scientists that it suggests that evolution is real. It happened. But these people decide, you know what? I want to take my feelings over facts. This guy would rather take his feelings over those facts. So kind of a hypocrite there. That being said, however, there are students who do take their feelings over facts. And that is, in a lot of ways, a good thing. Because understand that, yes, facts don't care about your feelings, but your feelings also don't care about your facts a lot of times. And that could be a good thing. So, for example, abolishing slavery. Slavery was objectively economically beneficial. White people benefited greatly economically by having slaves. So, I guess they could have said facts don't care about your feelings at that time, because there was no economic fact to suggest that it would be better to not have slaves. Except that there were a lot of people that had these things called, feelings, where they said, you know what, this doesn't feel right. And so we shouldn't do it because it doesn't feel right. And you know what, that's actually kind of a good thing. The same idea has to do with, for example, Medicare for All. Understand that Medicare for All is objectively economically efficient. And I'm sure this guy would take his feelings over that reason, over objective facts. But nonetheless, let's just put that aside for a second. I believe that healthcare is a right. I guarantee you guys, this guy doesn't believe that. But my feelings don't care about your feelings because, your feelings suck. So, for that reason, I believe that healthcare should be a human right. And so I'm going to go off of my feeling. So even if Medicare for All was even less economically efficient, I would still support it. Because I feel like that should be a human right. And so let's progress towards that. Arts. Let's go to the arts. So he said, contemporary art is meaningless because it is meant to shock people. I'm not quite sure how that's going to ruin everything. Like, to an extent, he's right. But I don't understand why he has a problem with this. Like, yeah, there was, for example, that art painting thing that was shredded up halfway and ended up, being worth so much more because of it, because of the shock and everything. But that was actually kind of cool and clever. And people like cleverness. So I have no problem with that. Literature. He says, people take diversity over excellence. Now, I don't really like this because this is something, if he understood progressives, this is something that progressives differ on. There are some progressives that take diversity over excellence. There are some progressives that take excellence over diversity. Just depends on who you ask. So I don't understand why this guy just blatantly says like as if it's an objective fact that progressives take diversity over excellence. I don't see any evidence of that. And he just gave one anecdote of William Shakespeare being taken down because he's a white European. Did all white Europeans get taken down? I'm confused. Or just him? Late night television. He's saying that political views are now the forefront of late night politics instead of comedy. But dude, we have a clown as a president. So politics is funny now. Like, a lot of politics is funny. Understand that. Like, look at SNL. I mean, they're not necessarily technically late night, but SNL, well, I don't know. I really don't know. But it's funny because oftentimes Trump is a moron. And when you exploit that, it's pretty funny. Whereas it used to be you would exploit maybe actors or famous people, kind of like a TMZ style SNL. But understand that at the time, that was kind of what to make fun of. That was the funny thing. And so it's still funny. And I understand that, like, for example, Stephen Colbert is so much more political. Jimmy Fallon's political. I understand that. And in a lot of ways, they've withdrawn from comedy a little bit. I think that has a lot more to do with corporate media being the owner of these shows. And so if you want to look at, for example, John Oliver, which is incredibly funny, then I think this guy, he just doesn't know his stuff. Religion. So he says that religious organizations are taking up these scientific doctrines. Yeah, dude, the church had like really big issues with accepting the fact that the earth went around the sun. So this whole thing about like Earth has a problem with science and that these churches that are accepting science, how dare they, that's going to ruin goodness. Would you say this? So are you making an argument that, like, for example, the Earth is flat? Oh, no. Forget about that time period, even though that was hundreds of years ago. What do I got next? Free speech. Let's go to the next one. Free speech. The guy says talks about hate crime or hate speech. Again, this is another one of those issues where progressives are split. Not all progressives say that hate speech should be protected or it should not be protected. I believe that to a degree, some hate speech should not be allowed. I don't think you should, for example, say, I want to kill you legally. I think that's kind of wrong. If I say, like, I don't like you or I don't agree with you or I think you're stupid, I think that should be totally allowed. So I don't know what this guy's talking about. And I know a lot of progressives that accept that to be true. But first off, let me just flip it on this guy real quick. Excuse me. My goodness, I have hiccups. This guy probably 100%, and almost most right-wingers in general, this is a generalization, most right-wingers support money in politics, where you get more speech if you have more money. It's not free. You have to pay for it. Moving on. Excuse me. Hiccups. Race. So, dude, black people are incarcerated at a higher rate according to the proportion of who commits the crimes. So, for example, if black people smoke weed 50% of the time, white people smoke weed 50% of the time, black people are incarcerated twice as much. So they would be incarcerated 75%, white people incarcerated 25%. And that's just a hypothetical example, but it's a generalization of the overarching problem. So what this guy was saying is, he was saying, yeah, well, we're like the least racist we've ever been. So because we've progressed, which by the way was due to progressivism, as far as we have so far, we shouldn't progress anymore. That's a really dumb argument. That's like saying, yeah, we're doing a great job, let's stop. Everything's been going great. We've led to this awesome moment. Everything that the progressives have done thus far has just been excellent. Let's stop. Why? Why should we stop progressing? That doesn't make any sense. Second to last one, the Boy Scouts. This one's freaking hilarious. This guy thinks that the Boy Scouts being called the Scouts now and allowing girls is so bad that it's going to ruin goodness in our society and family. That we need to make strong men. My goodness. I don't understand why this guy's so sexist. I'm pulling a card, guys. He's a sexist. Male, female, last point that he made is actually true. I do, but again, it's one of those issues that progressives are split on. So when it comes to male and female and being gender neutral, I do have an issue with this. I think that if someone's a male, then identifying them on their birth certificate as a male should be perfectly fine. I don't know why you would put an X on a birth certificate. Now, if someone says, I want to be called a man when they are not a man, then I just think you're a jerk if you call them a woman. Do I think that should be illegal? Not necessarily, because I have my differing views on hate speech. So yeah, this is one of those wishy-washy issues that this guy just suddenly decided to pick and say, yeah, I'm going to generalize this about all progressives. So let me just generalize something for you, my guy. Understand this. There are things that progressives do agree on, and none of those were you able to identify. So, for example, Medicare for all. Most progressives agree with Medicare for all. Decided not to touch that. I don't want to talk about it. Like one of the number one issues, money in politics. One of the number one issues that he didn't want to touch. So, like, what drives me nuts is he touched on all the issues that are controversial within progressive society, the progressive community, and pick certain sides that make progressives look bad to right-wingers and half of progressives so that, like, he can get 75, 80% of support behind what he says. But ironically, he's generalizing in a way that I think is incredibly unfair.